I think as a female leader, I want to talk about creating more opportunities for women. There's an angle when people talk about financing for women-led businesses, you keep hearing microcredit. And I think that needs to change. It depends on what kind of business a female head of an organization wants. We shouldn't limit women to microcredit because it never helps us to actually grow and develop. The second aspect I'd like to raise is that governments across our continent need to really take the bull by the horn, reduce corruption, reduce the vices that make others not want to come and invest in our continent, and make it easy to trade. And thirdly, we need to change the way we do business. Here in the Ivory Coast, as it relates to the cocoa sector, they've decided that those who want to use cocoa or want to produce or manufacture cocoa must come to the continent. That is another way of bringing capacity to where we are, to increase the capacity of our people and ensure that our raw materials are actually used here on the continent, which gives much more value. And I think we need to protect the indigenous industries. Of course, we are part of World Trade and all of those organizations, but the West protected their indigenous organizations and industries. We need to find a way to do that for the African industries, so we encourage our people to develop what we have and to utilize our resources here on the continent. The conflicts that we're seeing emerge are purely political conflicts. And I think we need to change the way we do politics. In most African countries, it's winner take all. Someone wins the election and those who get jobs are purely partisan people or those who have supported the particular group. And once you do a winner take all situation, those who are on the other side are left aside for many years, 4, 6, or 5 years. And then the noise begins to grow. I think first thing we need to do to reduce the noise in the political sphere is to do a political change where it's inclusive of the best and the brightest that we have in our countries, and not just political friends or those who are part of our political processes. That in itself will reduce the political stress that brings wars and coups that seem to be re-emerging on our continent. If everyone is involved in the political processes across our region, I think everyone will feel that they are part and parcel of growing and developing our countries. The second point I'd like to make is where it relates to climate change. The fact of the matter is that Africa is suffering from the effects of climate change, but we are not producing all of the emissions that come from this. Howbeit, we have some effects, floods, drought, and the different things that we're experiencing. What we have in Liberia is that we are a part between Liberia and Guinea of the last remaining rainforest in our region. And so we do have a lot of rains. We do have a lot of flooding in our areas because, again, the Arctic Circle is melting, and so the rains are coming down. What we have to do is to continue to move inland, but protect some of our seas and our rivers from overflowing and taking away where people live. We need to look at smart ways of doing business, because I don't believe we should pay attention only to the industries that will come and say, well, we can't bring major industries to Africa because we can no longer use the old ways. There are many smart ways of doing business, smart ways of the solar energy, wind, rain, water that we can use to make sure that the manufacturing that we need on the continent to manufacture our own resources are actually available. And so as we talk about climate change, we must find new ways, but we must encourage all of our countries to produce our resources as we have been given them by God. This is the only way we'll reduce the high level of migration of our young people across the seas looking for greener pastures, when we can create a green Africa, as some countries have already done, and produce what we need to produce. In terms of COVID, I'm happy to say that the predictions from the West about how high our levels were never came to pass. The fact is we didn't have the facilities, medical or health-wise to deal with the pandemics if they had been at that level. And so I'm grateful that Africa has very small numbers. But what shocked me is that a few weeks ago, we got a supply of COVID drugs from South Africa. And they have now started to produce some of the intravenous drugs that we use. And when I asked why it had taken so long for them to actually deliver, the Minister of Foreign Affairs said to me that there were barriers that were put on manufacturing companies coming to actually produce COVID drugs in South Africa. And so it took a long time, and I was shocked. Why would certain important things that we need as it relates to our own population and the global world that we face have barriers so that companies who should come to Africa to manufacture or teach us how are denied access? They had to get a special waiver. And I thought this is something that we really need to look at. What are these barriers, hidden barriers in the back that stop our manufacturing opportunities? Because it's not just COVID. Today is COVID, tomorrow it will be Lassa fever. I mean, Africa has a lot of issues, but I believe we must go beyond these barriers and bring the manufacturers to our continent. You know, Liberia is the land of liberty. There are many opportunities there, from tourism to agriculture to energy to gold and diamond and coltan, and we have the best tourism sites in our country. In fact, there is a part of Liberia on our shores that is the best place for surfing. There are many opportunities. My President George Mane continues to say, we are open for business. We have a regime that is easy to access and to get involved with us. We want partnerships. Come and join us. You will never be disappointed.
I'm a king, yes, I'm a king, I think I'm a king,